So Danny, I hear you've become a Quaker. Does that mean you ride around in a horse and buggy and don't use electricity?
I'm a Quaker. But Quakers don't avoid technology. You're confusing us with the Amish.
Oh. So what are Quakers all about?
In the mid-1600s, in England, there was a young man named George Fox, who was seeking God. He was very dissatisfied with the churches available to him. He felt that all they did was talk about Jesus, but didn't really follow Jesus as disciples. George spoke with various pastors and ministers, but no one could answer his questions or help him find what he was looking for. He finally stopped going to church altogether. Then one day he heard God's voice very clearly. The voice said that Jesus Christ was the only one who could speak to his condition. This was the answer George had been looking for. He realized that it was possible to hear directly from God and be taught by Jesus directly. George had additional revelations, and he traveled around England telling others what he had come to believe. Many of them experienced the same things and believed also. Before long there were thousands of Quakers in England. Soon they expanded over to Europe and the American colonies.
Why are they called Quakers? That seems like a funny name.
You're right. It is. They were originally called Quakers as an insult because sometimes in their meetings they would experience the presence of God so strongly that they would tremble and shake. They referred to themselves by several names, including Children of Light and Friends, which comes from John 15:15, where Jesus says, "I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you." The official name of the Quakers is the Religious Society of Friends. They decided to keep the nickname of Quakers also.
You said they experienced the presence of God. What does that mean?
This is the very core of what Quakerism is all about. Quakers believe that God is actively involved in every person's life. We believe that it is possible to hear God and feel God's presence. It is an interactive relationship. Because of this ongoing relationship, Quakers believe that it is possible to be instructed directly by God and to walk in obedience to His will and not fall victim to sin. We also believe that, if we spend time in His presence, He enables us to live holy lives. When we gather together, we become quiet and listen to hear what God is saying to us as a community. When we wait silently together, we often experience the presence of God in our midst. During such times, some individuals may feel that God is prompting them to share a message with the rest of the group.
Wait. You mean anyone can speak during your meetings? Doesn't that get chaotic?
Anyone can speak, but the goal is to only speak if you are certain that God has given you something to say. This means there is a great deal of responsibility upon everyone in the meeting to speak if God gives you a message, but also to remain silent if God has not given you a word to share.
It seems like you would get a bunch of different and conflicting messages from different people.
You would think so. But that's not what happens if we listen carefully to God and only speak when He clearly leads. When it works this way, what happens is that a handful of people around the room will share as they are prompted by the Holy Spirit. These are not prepared messages but are spontaneous. The messages are typically brief. Sometimes a person will say a prayer or sing a song or describe a picture they're seeing in their mind's eye. What is amazing is that all of this weaves together to form a cohesive tapestry. At the end of a meeting like this, it is very clear what the overall message was, and it is equally clear that it was God conducting the meeting and conveying the message.
So there is no pastor giving a sermon or worship band playing songs?
It depends. Some Quaker meetings are unprogrammed, which means they do what I just described. Other Quaker meetings are programmed or semi-programmed, which means there may be singing of worship songs and a brief prepared sermon. Even in programmed meetings, there is usually a time for open worship, where the congregation listens together to God and anyone can speak, if God prompts them to. Even when there is singing and a sermon, this open worship is the heart of a Quaker meeting. Some Quaker meetings have a pastor, but they aren't the type of dominant authority figure that pastors and priests sometimes are in other denominations, since Quakers believe in the priesthood of all believers.